Hello, everyone. I'm happy that you are here in this other weekly live that we have here every Tuesday at 10 p.m. London time. And today we're going to be talking about how to give talks, how to submit talks. And this is very important because the more we give talks, the more we get exposed, the more we build our reputation, the more we improve our career, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be the top speaker in the world, but this skill is highly valuable. And even if you say, hey, Rafael, I don't really like to expose myself in big conferences, I don't like to be a speaker, that's totally fine. But at least you need to build the skill of sharing knowledge in your company. And the more senior you get, the more important it is to share your knowledge with people in your company, right? Because like you gather a lot of experience, gather a lot of knowledge, and people rely on you for improving software, to reducing bugs, to make the software delivery more reliable. The more you grow in your career, the more this skill becomes important. So even if you say, hey, Rafael, I really hate being in front of people, I really hate stage, it's okay. You can still use this skill in your company, right? I know that when we give talks, we feel a bit nervous and, we have fear of criticism, but it's a fear that is worth it to conquer, right? And one way to make you more ready to give a talk is to get prepared, right? So I'm going to be talking to you here about some topics that are important for you to submit talks. And I'm going to be telling you some things that really helped me to start giving talks as well. So I'm going to tell some stories that might also help you in your journey. So the first thing is about topic selection, right? So there are some strategies to select the topic. So the first one is your expertise. So you can choose topics that you have experience, topics that you like, and so that you are known for that specific niche. For example, I know Scott likes to share knowledge about refactoring, and he's well known because of that. And you can choose your specific niche and save what Scott is saying. So the more you niche down whatever you're giving the talks, the easier it is for you to get recognition, because if you're sharing things that everyone else is sharing, you're going to become just one more speaker. No one will remember you. And it's kind of sad to say that, but in most talks, nobody will remember like almost anything from what we said. So this is kind of funny and sad at the same time, because like most people, they don't take notes. It's difficult to remember, right? And I also recommend you, like when you're listening to a talk, if you can't take notes, take it, right? Otherwise, you're going to forget. And there's a statistic that in most talks, like people will remember, I don't know, maybe 20% of what was said. So, and the other thing is that choose a topic that you love, right? Because giving talks is not easy itself. And, choose a topic that you really like. For example, I started giving talks about Java challenges because I really love to create those challenges, and kind of, it's always fun. Like when people try to guess what is the output and they make a mistake sometimes, or they get it right. And I've been doing that for a long time. And now I'm sharing content more focused on career. It's also normal to change focus from time to time. So it's up to you to decide. Like one thing that's important to remember is that your focus doesn't need to be the final focus. You just have to be something to get started. And the other thing is to choose your audience. So for example, you can share content about Spring, Quarkus, JVM improvements, microservices, and you have to know what's the audience, right? So the most well-known speakers, usually they have beginners as an audience. And why is that? It's because there are a lot more beginners than intermediate or senior Java developers, or whatever the programming language you want. So you have to have a goal, right? So you have to think, I like to share content about architecture. I like to share content about microservices. Or you might say, no, I really like to share content about performance. or security. It depends on what are your expertise and what you like the most. Okay, great. And it has to have relevance in the Java community. So consider topics that, are pain points for Java developers, and could be performance, could be debugging techniques, could be Java and AI, microservices architectures, maybe new testing technologies, or it could be modernization of software. So there are many options, right? There are many well-known speakers that their focus is about modernization of software. And they make very good money as consultants. That's a very interesting career path to take, right? So basically, as a consultant, you sell your service to the company. And to market yourself as a consultant, a great way to do that is to be a speaker. And you can notice that there are many speakers who are consultant and they have a specific niche. And they find customers when they go to conferences to give talks. But if your goal is to only evolve in your career, or maybe to be a DevRel, giving talks is a great way to get them. For example, to be a DevRel, like you want to become DevRel by applying for a job. You will only become a DevRel if you start giving talks and getting exposed and building your reputation bit by bit. Because a DevRel, it's not a position that's going to be in public. It's a position that someone in a conference will reach out to you and say, hey, I liked your talk. I would like you to work for me. That's how it works. So like giving talks gives you many possibilities, right? You can become a DevRel. You can upgrade your career as well. Because if you're giving a talk about a specific topic and there is someone in the company there who wants to hire you because you solve this specific problem, they will probably hire you, right? And also you can become a DevRel, or you can also market yourself to be a consultant. So it helps you in many ways. And obviously you're giving back to the community, right? So proposal writing. So how can you write a compelling title? So create a clear, specific titles, and you have to promise value as well. For example, building resilient microservices with Java is better than Java microservices. Java microservices means nothing. A clear abstract. So write 150 to 250 words, summarizing your talk's purpose, and also talk about the takeaways and try to connect as much as possible with developers, right? Try to understand your audience, because if you don't understand your audience, chances are that they won't be interested in your talk. So it's important that you know who you're talking with. For example, here I know that most of you are senior developers, right? So I can't be sharing basic things. I have to talk about something that goes beyond the basic, right? So, but if you have a beginner's audience, then you can share very basic stuff. You can share whatever they need, like basic Java or something like that. And list 3 or 5 concrete learnings attendees you gain, right? So, for example, after you give the talk or even the abstract, you list 3 things that they're gonna be able to do even better, like, right? So if they go to your talk and they're able to do something with whatever you shared, that's a lot better, right? Because it's not only, they learned, doesn't bring much value. So, but if your audience is able to do something useful with whatever you shared, then you brought a lot of value. And what about conference selection? So I recommend always starting on local meetups. And I have to thank Scott Wisherman, because one of my first talk in English was in his jug in Houston. So thank you so much, Scott, for that, for opening the doors. Yes, it's been a long time, being like it was in 2017. It's been a long time. And I was very nervous. I think Scott didn't know, but I read the whole text. I didn't do the talk. My English was horrible at the time. Kind of like I wasn't fluent at all. And, still looking for speakers. Okay. I might give a talk there if you, okay, great. We can talk later. So yeah, Scott opened the door. So Java community is a great way to start giving talks. So if you have a local meetup close to your place, start giving talks there, and then build up your confidence bit by bit. You start small, and then, yeah, your local junk is looking for speakers too. Yeah. So you guys here, you are highly skilled software developers. So you have a lot to share. So start small. Start giving talks in your company. This is what I did. I started giving talks in my company. I was very good with GSF. I was reasonably good with clean code as well. And I gave those talks in my company. And all of a sudden, the managers, architects, like all of those people, they said, "Oh, Rafael, you grow so much just because I gave a talk." I know I won't underestimate that. Giving talk is difficult, but because I faced my fears and I went there and I gave the talk, people were looking at me differently. And it was a lot easier for me to get a promotion, for example. Like I gave a talk in my company and I reached out to my manager and said, "Hey, I did this and this, and I think I deserve to become a senior developer." And then he promoted me. So when you give talks, things get easier, right? So, and you can start really small, like giving a talk in your job. So, or even giving a talk to a friend, or, if you have a YouTube channel, just give a talk to your YouTube channel, right? And the networking when you go to jugs is amazing because, you're going to find motivated developers. And in some jugs, they even mentor you to give talks. So I heard that, yes, you can ask speakers to mentor you, to review your slides, right? Review your slides, or maybe you can record your talk and then you can send to a speaker, say, "Hey, could you be kind and analyze how good I did the talk here, if I'm clear, whatever." So there are many things you can do in a JavaOne group. So people are very nice in a JavaOne group. And, another good mindset to have when you go to JavaOne group or training conference is to be a giver, right? So offer help. Obviously, don't offer random help. See what you can help a JavaOne group leader. So for me, I might be wrong here, Scott, but one of the things that it seems to me that is the most valuable thing for the jug leaders is to find speakers, right? Find speakers. Yeah. So you can find speakers. How can you do that? The internet. You can go to the internet and, you can say, "Hey, I'm talking in the name of the Houston jug," or "I'm talking in the name of Soul Java," right? So yeah, so Scott's saying, I can always find a location if I have a great speaker. Oh yeah. So you can find the speaker. You can use the name of the jug. Don't need to use your name because, if you're not giving talks yet, it's more difficult to reach out to Java champions, to, speakers. Like it's not impossible, but it's more difficult. But if you're using the name of a jug, it's a lot easier. You can say, "Hey, I'm from Soul Java. I'm from Houston Jug. I am from whatever." When you use the name of a community, it's a lot easier to get engagement from speakers. So that's something you can do and something extremely valuable. So our regional conferences could be DevNexus. Yeah, actually, DevBox International Event. JavaOne. Yeah, it's more difficult to give talks in a larger community. Like they have more, like a more rigorous selection, obviously. So, but you start small and start to build your reputation, and then it's getting easier. Then it will get easier. Okay, so there's a lot here. And what is the structure of your talk? You give an introduction, right? And don't talk too much about you because there is a mantra we use that nobody cares about us. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about me. Or, I know this is kind of harsh, but this is kind of the fundamentals of marketing, right? What does that mean? It means that you're giving a talk for someone to help them in something. They're not there to see you, right? They are there to solve their problems, right? So that's one very important thing to remember. When you're giving a talk, you're solving your audience problem. So don't, overdo talking about yourself, because if you talk too much about yourself, people will start looking at their phones and they won't pay attention on you. And organize your content in a logical progression, problem, solution, implementation, results, and could be somewhere around 3 to 5 main sections. And summarize key points, provide resources for their learning. So in the conclusion, actually, it's a lot better if you give them a good call to action, right? And what would be a good call to action? It could be a mini book, right? So I see many speakers giving kind of a weak call to action, like Twitter. People will follow you, but following it, they'll forget who are you, right? But if you have people on your email list, and I know this is a bit advanced, like I don't need to go that far, but it's good to give something interesting for your audience. Like a mini book would be a good one. For example, I have the mini book here. So you can see here. Let's see if this appears. Let's see. Yes, I have this mini book. So when I give a talk, I usually give this mini book. And this book is aligned with my focus. My focus is to help intermediate and senior Java developers upgrade their careers. That's it, right? So it's a Challenger Developer Guide. So basically those 7 steps to help you upgrade your career more quickly. You can also use code examples and, simplify for clarity. Use minimal focus examples, like use a big font, use a clear way to show your code. That's truly because, sometimes we might make mistakes on demos and we need to basically test it as many times as possible and get prepared for demo failure. So basically, if the code fails during the presentation, you can have a video to back up, right? Because sometimes errors will happen during a demo. So the best thing is just have a video, and because you don't know, like the internet might not work, there might be some things happening. And for visual aids, use high contrast, right? So for the size of the text, 24 pt. And bullet points, don't use too many words in the slides, because if you use too many words, you're going to overwhelm your audience. And the thing is that people will stop paying attention on you and people will pay attention in the presentation. And this is not very good, right? People should pay attention more in you rather than the slides. So don't make your slides too complicated. Make it very simple, like as simple as possible, where you can pass your message in the most effective way. And you can also create diagrams. Diagrams are great, and you can use UML, Mermaid, or for live coding setup. You can use, I like, for example, the presentation mode from IntelliJ. So like you can open IntelliJ, there is an option called presentation mode, and then you can see the code very clearly. And this is a common mistake that, new speakers make. They don't make the font big enough. And then like sometimes the audience, they get a little bit shy. They don't say anything. And then nobody understands what you're talking about. And that's a problem, right? So anyway, just make sure that you have big fonts on your code. And regarding presentation skills, so speaking pace, make sure not speaking very fast, right? Oh, okay. Scott saying here, practice in live coding example at least 1,000 test fed. Yeah, even when Kat Subramania says that if you're doing live coding, just practice many times. Because even for him, like he only does live coding, and he says that live coding is hard. It is really hard because you are under pressure. Like many people are watching you, and you have to make it right. Like it's like kind of an acting, right? You have to basically to memorize all the steps. Like you're acting, and you can make one mistake or another, but it's like acting. Like you have to do the whole thing. So live coding takes a lot more work because you have the content and you have to act, right? You have to remember all the steps. Yeah. So Scott is saying, I just make slides of the code when things don't go as expected. For the room, it's really hard to figure out what went wrong. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I personally prefer to, if I have to show code, I just show code in this lab. Unless I'm doing a Java challenge, then it's different, right? If I am, for example, in an online conference, like sometimes I like to do live coding with the Java challenge, but it's just a matter of remembering the steps, right? So, but anyway, it's hard. And regarding body language, stand confidently, like use some gestures as well. Doesn't need to be crazy gestures. Also keep your posture straight. That's very important, because if you do that, like it's simple to do that, but if you only do that, you show a lot more confidence. Eye contact, scan different sections of the room. For virtual talks, look directly at the camera. Yeah, now I'm looking at the camera. Now you're seeing. Okay, so handling nerves. This is challenging, and like even more if you're starting gaming talks. Imagine if you like start to gaming talks in your job and there is around 20 people watching you. Then you go to a conference or you go to a JavaOne group. This JavaOne group is popular, and there will be 50 people watching you. Then you're gonna get more nervous. And this is completely normal. Like if there is 50, 100, 500 people watching you, you're gonna get nervous. So it's good to rehearse the full presentation at least 5 times. And you can, if you have a channel, you can just do a dry run on your channel about the talk. And this is what I've done when I did my first talk in JavaOne. So my Java challenges talk was accepted in 2017. And basically, I gave the talk with the co-lead from the Dublin JavaOne group. And we practiced giving this talk many times. We gave this talk in the Dublin JavaOne group, in the Belfast JavaOne group. We gave this talk for So Java. We gave this talk for my channel as well. And so we practice a couple of times. And that helps a lot, actually. Rehearse the full thing even more when you know that there will be more people watching. Breathing techniques, like doing that really helps. Sometimes if you're feeling nervous or if you're feeling anxious, try breathing in through your nose and breathing out with your mouth. And do that a couple of times, and that will definitely keep you calmer. And visualize success as well. So, and how can that be easier? So, to visualize success more easily is to basically prepare. So, the more you prepare, the more it's easier for you to mentally rehearse that your talk will go well. Questions and answer preparation. Anticipate questions. List 10 to 15 potential questions and prepare concise answers. So yeah, because people might ask you something that is, unexpected. And to handle difficult questions, you can use bridging techniques. Like you can say, hey, that's an interesting point. And you can, for example, say, hey, this is a very interesting question, but I don't have time to go into this question right now. And if you want, we can talk in private, right? We can talk privately. And, you can also say that, oh, this question is interesting, but it's not part of the topic. But if you want, we can have a chat after this talk, right? Or if you generally don't know and you have no idea about the answer, you can say, hey, yeah, I don't really know about that, but I can answer to you later. You can reach out to me on whatever social media. So yeah, and you don't need to know everything. No speaker knows everything. And for post presentation, collect feedback, right? Create a simple feedback form. And this is what I do here in these weekly lives as well. I will send a form to you. Stay after your talk to chat with, interested attendees. Talk to them. And, sometimes your solution might help them, right? For example, Scott shares content about refactoring. And I don't know, there might be a company in this conference and they might say, hey, Scott, your skill is very valuable to my company, right? And, or some developer really needs his techniques to refactor like the coding in their company, right? So like talking to the attendees after your talk is very important because you never know, you might have a very important project. And social media feedback, you can monitor hashtags. Like if your talk has a specific hashtag with your name, for example, you can monitor that as well. DevOps, you find that, for example. And content sharing. Share your slides on SlideShare or your personal website within 24 hours so that it's easier, for your audience to consume your slide and create a clean, well-documented GitHub repo with your examples, right? That's important so that the developers can run tests with your code, right? And write a follow-up article expanding the key points and answering the main questions. If you do those things, this is a very good call to action, right? And Scott, I was laughing here because I was remembering like how difficult it was the first time I went to JavaOne and we got that room, remember? Man, that story was funny. It was funny because the first time I went to JavaOne, I went with Scott and we were in the same place. And like, it wasn't a very pleasant place, right? Roommates, we were roommates. Yeah, if you want, Scott, you can share a bit of the experience. I can. I remember that we were even embarrassed to tell the speakers where we were staying. But that's one good lesson to have, right? Because like when we start giving talks, it's not like sometimes they won't pay you the ticket. They won't pay, like they will pay at least the conference ticket, but they won't pay you the flight ticket. Like there will be, like we're going to have to pay most of the things, right? So when we are starting, it's more difficult. Like for me to go to JavaOne, like I spent, I think it was like at least $5,000, right? And yeah, that was the cost. So like I had to invest in myself, right? I was investing in myself, like Scott also invested in himself. But it was one of the best experiences I had, right? Like how many parties did we go there, Scott? So many parties, right? There was parties from Google, from IBM, from Tommy Tribe, from Microsoft, like JCP. Yeah. Like there was the Java band with the guitar. Oh, it was so cool. It was a good investment for me. Exactly. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. Like hanging out with people that we admire definitely is a good thing because we learn a lot from them, right? And I remember you were organizing, you were in touch with all the Java champions, right? You were organizing the whole thing there, right? It was awesome. Yeah, like when I went to JavaOne, I felt like I had exponential growth. Like in few days, it was like I had 5 years of growth. Like it was insane. Did you feel like that as well? Yeah, and I remember I was very shy to talk with people. It was my first time in a big conference, right? And Scott was the guy opening the conversations for me, helping me, right? Helping me because Scott is more extrovert than me. Scott. Oh, okay, so you faked it really well then because you were just reaching out to a lot of people and talking to a lot of people. For me, it was very hard. Exactly, yeah. Like even, yeah, like in my case that I did a big investment at the time and like I had to do it. Sometimes you just go and you have to do it. Like there's no other option. So that's a good mindset. Like even if you feel the fear, just go for it. Exactly. Yeah. Even for the experienced speakers, for them it's also difficult. Yes. Like it's a good effort to do. I know it's uncomfortable. I know that like you might feel, oh my God, like I'm afraid to talk with the speaker. But if you take the action and even if you say something that makes no sense, they will be very nice with you. I think several times I said things that didn't make much sense, but they were nice with me. But that's true. Yeah. If you ask specific questions about their talks, they're going to love it. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, very good story. It was difficult, but it was worth it. It was great. That's great. So, but a call to action that you could create is to create an article. You can create an article and share that with your audience, right? And, refine your talk, collect feedback from your audience, and revise the content, and based on the feedback you create that people gave you, you improve your talk and also build a speaker network. It is exactly what me and Scott were talking about here. So talk with speakers and, one golden question that you can make to them is basically to say, how is the event going? Right. Because, don't make a closed question. If you make a closed question, they're going to say yes or no. But if you say, how is the event going? They're going to say, oh, that was great. I watched this talk here. now I'm going to give my talk, blah, blah, blah. So it's a lot easier, right? What's your favorite talk? And tell me more about this talk. And they might say, oh, my favorite talk is about JVM. And then you can talk about the JVM, can talk about, many things with the speaker, right? And, having the guts to talk with speakers is not easy. So, and they will really value you, even if you talk nonsense to them, right? Even if you make questions that, like, they would say, okay, like, why you're asking that? They will treat you well because it's not easy to take the action, right? Not easy at all. You feel very uncomfortable. So, and use audience questions for inspiration, right? So you have to know your audience, what they want, what are their problems. So that's why I ask you lots of questions, because if I know your problems, it's easier for me to help you. If I don't know your problems, it's impossible, right? And create follow-up for your audience, right? Like I said, you can offer a book. I have the Challenger Developer Guide here, but you could offer an article as well. You can say, hey, you can share your article. Or I don't like too much the call to action of Twitter. Like you say, hey, this is my Twitter, follow me. Because usually like people will follow you, but they'll never engage with you. They won't do anything with you. So you won't be able to help them out very much. Like the best way to help your audience is to offer a book, and then preferably to have an email list. Because if you have an email list, you can talk with your audience a lot more. If you just give the book, still it's better than, oh, follow me on Twitter. But if you have your audience in an email list, you can help them a lot more. And create effective conference submissions, right? This one is a bit big. Let me organize here. Start with a problem statement or intriguing question, right? For your abstract, right? And the structure can have something around 150 to 250 words. So paragraph 1, problem statement, then your approach to solve it. And then here, what the attendees will be able to do with whatever you shared. Include also the target audience. So what is your audience? It's junior developers, it's intermediate, senior, and also be honest about the prerequisites. So you can say, to have value from my talk, we need to have experience with Spring, right? And I also highly recommend you to use the AIDA framework. So AIDA is a concept that's highly used in marketing. So basically, when you want to call the attention of your audience, like use this AIDA framework. So what is that? So first, you hook the reader's attention. You open with something surprising, with a statistic, could be a problem statement or a provocative question. One example could be 75% of Java microservices fail silently in production, which issues discovered only after customer impact. This grabs my attention, right? This is something impactful. Our technique is that you focus on pain points that resonate with developers. Could be performance issues, debugging nightmares, deploying challenges, right? This is the attention. Then interest. So explain why this problem matters now. One example is, as enterprises migrate to cloud-native architectures, traditional monitoring approaches fall short. The complexity of distributed system demands new observability techniques that Java developers often discover too late. So this is something interesting and technique. Connect to industry trends, architectural shifts, or Java ecosystem change. So basically say something interesting, something that will make your audience interested in your content. And desire could be like to present the solution value, like highlight specific benefits of your approach. One example could be, this session introduces practical observability patterns for Java applications that reveal hidden performance bottlenecks. You're going to learn how to implement distributed tracing with minimal overhead, create meaningful metrics beyond basic JVM monitoring, and build logging that actually helps during incidents. And here in the technique, you are specific on technologies frameworks, right? And for action, you say clearly what's going to be the takeaway, right? So you say here that you're going to leave, like one example could be, leave with ready to implement code patterns, a monitoring checklist for Java microservices, and strategies to make your systems transparent operation systems. And, focus on something practical, something that your audience can do, not that's going to learn, right? Oh, yeah. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, is it good now? Okay, great. Thank you. And the complete AIDA abstract example. Like, I won't read everything, right? But basically, it's attention, interest, desire, and action. And I'll also share this mind map with you. I'll just ask you to just fill out the form with the feedback about this weekly live, and then I can improve the next one. And for title crafting, include benefits, like you could say, building faster APIs with Java records and project loan shows clear value. Be specific as well. So it could be like optimizing Java Spring Boot applications for production. Obviously, it's better than the generic title, right? Java optimization doesn't mean anything. Or you could say implementing, building, mastering, solving, because that will make people engage with your content. And consider formulas like a problem solution title could be taming memory leak, long-running Java applications. Could be a how-to as well. How-to titles are simple and it works very well. So like how to deploy Java microservices on Kubernetes. Could be numbers. I also like to create articles like that. So you already seen, like I created an article like that. This title, right? This title is like this number style. And one example is 5 performance tuning techniques for the application. And obviously you can use AI as well to help you, right? You can use AI to help in the titles, to help you create the presentation. And it's good to have some storytelling so that, the talk becomes unique for you, right? It doesn't become a very generic talk. So, and for the submission components, I decided the talk format. It could be a 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes talk. Could be a workshop. Could be a lightning talk. And also, for example, mark what is the difficulty level. If it's introductory, intermediate, or advanced, keep 3 to 4 sentences highlighting, relevant experience to your topic. So on the speaker bio, basically saying, make it clear, what is your experience, right? If you wrote a book, you can say, hey, I'm an author. And also every time you write your bio, don't say AI. Say, always write it in the third person. Like, for example, if I'm writing a bio for me, I would say, hey, Rafael is a Java champion. And then you could write it. And then you could say, he is also a book author, right? Always write your bio in the third person, because then it seems that someone else is talking about you. It's actually not. So, but it just creates the impression, right? When you have your speaker bio, it's like that. So I can even see if I can find here my bio. Yeah, here. So to me. So for example, it could be like that. Notice that I'm not talking, oh, I am a mentor. It's like he is a mentor. It's like someone else is writing my bio, right? So this is an important detail. If you see every speaker bio, it's like that. Outline, additional materials, create bullet points of major sections with timing. And time is very important, guys. So when you're giving a talk, I know that here I don't care too much about time. Like usually the talk takes usually 1 hour. But when you're giving a talk in a conference and you have 45 minutes, you have to follow that. Like you can use your phone, right? You can use your phone and, put the clock and make sure you're going to stop at the time, because it's really disrespectful to be on stage when there is another speaker, right? And the speaker needs to get prepared, needs to get ready, and you are still there. It's really disrespectful. So don't make this mistake. Always make sure that if you have a talk that's 45 minutes, you make sure it's 45 minutes. If you have a talk that's 30 minutes, you make sure it's only 30 minutes, right? And it's also good to have materials of you giving talks. Why? Because conferences will usually ask you, say, hey, do you have a reference from a talk you gave? Then having these videos is really handy. And have GitHub repositories or articles demonstrating your expertise. This helps a lot to get talks accepted. Because then, like if I am reviewing your talk, for example, and you have nothing, you don't have a talk anywhere, you have no articles, you have no GitHub repository, Like the only thing you're gonna have is your LinkedIn. This is not very good if you want to give a talk in a big conference. So to give talks in a big conference, it's, you know, you have to have good networking. You have to have some articles. If you have articles, it becomes a lot easier because then I can see your articles. I can see your blog. I can see, okay, this person has good knowledge. So it's easier to accept this person to give a talk here. And also networking obviously helps a lot because when I do networking conferences, we really talk with lots of speakers, not only speakers, but conferences organizers, right? And guess what? Who is usually checking if your talk is going to be accepted or not? It's going to be speakers most of the times, right? So if the speaker knows you, it's a lot easier to accept you because, oh, I like this person. Yeah, I talked with Rafael. I talked with Scott. Yeah, let's accept them, right? And this is something just normal for us, right? If you're doing an interview for a job and if a person knows you already, you have a lot more chances to pass the interview, a lot more chances. So this is important to keep in mind as well, like networking. Common mistakes to avoid, for example, over-promising. Sometimes, you know, the title might claim that you're going to be talking about a lot more, but then sometimes the talk doesn't deliver. So this is a mistake, right? Just make sure that your title, you're going to deliver whatever you have in your title. Marketing language, like developers hate marketing language. Avoid sales pitches for products or services. And vagueness, be specific about technologies, techniques, and learning outcome. Obviously, avoid grammar issues. Have a friend to proofread your slides and make sure you have a good presentation. And that's pretty much it, challengers. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any questions before we end this week? Oh, basically, let me share the form. This is very important. Okay, let me share the form here. And then if you have any questions, either you can write on the chat or if you want, you can also talk. Let me live satisfaction. Yeah, let me share that. And I'm going to also share the mind map. Okay, great. Okay, great. So I see a question from Scott. So just to let you know, guys, so I'm sharing here the form, right? I'm sharing the form by answering to this feedback. So you can say, hey, okay, this weekend live could be better or could be, you can say anything. And you're going to also get the mind map. Once you finish filling out the form, you're going to get the mind map. And then meanwhile, I'm going to answer your question. So Scott is asking, how did you get your first presentation? That's a very good question, Scott. So I started thinking about giving talks after attending conferences, learning from mentors, and by reading books. I learned that it was very important to face this challenge of giving talks. And people were giving talks in the company I was working for. So there was an opportunity to give talks there. And I said, okay, I'm going to submit a talk because like I was well known in the company. Like I was the JSF guy. Like I was well known because of GSF. Then I said, okay, I'm going to submit a presentation about GSF. And that's what I did because there was this area in my job. I submitted a talk about GSF and then clean code. And those were my very first talks, right? And then because I had those talks ready, I also submitted a talk to a local Java user group. So I started attending Meetup from São Paulo. And I just told them, hey, I'm interested in giving a talk. Could you give me a space to give a talk? So my first, and I basically gave the same talks in code and JSF. And that was pretty much it, what I did to give my first talks. So I knew a content, like I was kind of recognized like the JSF guy. And because of that, it was easier for me to submit a talk and to give the talk about JSF. And I was also kind of well known because of clean code. And I said, okay, I will create a talk about clean code as well. And people enjoyed it. So yeah, basically I took action. I said, okay, I like those topics and I will submit it. That's it. So makes sense. What's your favorite place to do a talk? Yeah, so online is nice when I can see your faces. Like Only Scott is with his camera turned on. Thank you so much, Scott. Scott's an example. He's an example. But sometimes we give talks online, and like when you can't see people, it's more difficult because it seems that you're giving talk to the wall or to the computer, right? So it is more difficult. But when I see you, it's easier, right? I can see, okay, my like people are seeing me, are paying attention. But I really like to give talks in conferences, right? I like to go to conferences because I meet speakers. Obviously it's more challenging. It is. You get a bit more nervous, but it's still like the conference is for me is my favorite place. I also like to give talks in Java user groups because the community is very nice. Like I gave a talk for DebJug. I don't know if it was the beginning of this year. Probably it was last year. Yeah, I think it was last year. It was very nice. So I like to give talks for jugs, for big conferences, or online. I also like it. So it's difficult to choose one specifically. Like maybe a big conference because of the challenge. Because like it's a big conference, I'm gonna be very nervous. So yeah, maybe that's it. I never thought about this question before. It's a good one. Yeah. So depends on my focus. My focus now is about career. And I know it's more difficult to submit talks about career. Most conferences, they won't accept a talk related to Java career because in their eyes, developers only like technical content, which I still have technical content, but most of my content nowadays is career related content. So I'm very glad that in most conferences now, we are opening the mentorship hub, right? Where we can give mentoring in these mentorship hubs, right? And that's a way, right, for me to have my mentorships accepted, right? Because that you're a drug leader, right? So it's a lot more difficult to give a talk about non-technical topics, right? So I don't know if it's the same, but for example, here in DebJug, the drug leader here, he was very reluctant when I submitted a talk about career. But usually I like to give a talk about my focus. Otherwise, like I don't have a very powerful call to action. Otherwise, I can't help much my audience. Exactly. Like nowadays, most of the big conferences, they want to hear about AI. So yeah, AI can help you. Yeah, for sure. That's a good idea, actually, Scott, because like I can talk about something technical and I can unite those topics like with AI and career. And then like probably the conferences will be more acceptable of my talks. But from my experience, usually career related topics, it's not very well accepted in big conferences. So, but that's okay. Like we're kind of creating a movement on the mentorship hub and then it's a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier. Any other question? Like Captain America, I can do this all day. But so far, I didn't know Captain America makes questions. It's okay. If you have more questions, just send it. Hansa, Uma, who else has questions? Guilherme. So we have more questions. If you're not, just enough for today, I guess. Oh, and don't forget to fill out the form so that you get the mind map. Okay, thanks, Guilherme. Great. Who got the mind map? Raise your hands if you got the mind map. Thank you so much, Scott. Very good, guys. So thank you so much for being here and for focusing on your career. And I'll be here again next week on Tuesday at 10 p.m. London time. And hope to see you again. And turn on your camera next time. If you can turn on your camera, that would be great, right? So yeah, Scott and Hansa are examples. I'm just kidding, guys. Okay. So thank you so much, guys. And I'll see you on next Tuesday at 10 p.m. London time. Okay. Cheers. Thank you.